So I just picked up the Switch 2, and I've been playing it pretty solid since I got it. So I wanted to share my thoughts, also why this may not be the best option for you if you're buying this for a particular purpose, such as high-end gaming or retro gaming. There are better options. I've been retro gaming recently and I picked up an Anbernic RG556 for under $200, and this cheaper device has made me a little sad about the Switch 2. I wish the Switch 2 gave us a little more. So let's get started. So the Switch 2 to me is like an evolutionary release, an iteration, rather than something that's revolutionary and changing the space. I don't remember a Nintendo console ever getting a 2 either when I think back to the NES, the Super NES, that added more buttons and 3D, the N64 bringing analog, the GameCube bringing us modern gaming, the Wii with its infrared sensor, the Wii U, and then the original Switch with its handheld and docking situation. But off the bat, this device, it does feel expensive, and it is, I suppose, but when you take into account inflation, which is roughly around 33% since 2017 for the Switch 1's original release, they're not too far apart in terms of price. But with the Switch 2, you do get a bigger display, a much better build quality, a better stand, and 256GB of default storage on this device, instead of the absolutely atrocious Switch 1 default storage of 32GB. That was criminal. And with Switch games being roughly around 15GB, I'm not sure if this generation is going to increase that any further. We did see Cyberpunk with a 64GB, but that is an exception. I think we'll be good for a while without having to upgrade our system or our storage, which is nice because the Switch 1, I kind of bought one game, Breath of the Wild, and I was done. That was it. You're full. And also, if you look closely at this device, no one seemed to have commented on this, is the Switch 2 has glitter in its matte black paint job. The device is literally sparkling. I thought it was kind of cool. I actually do like it. Some early reviewers were actually talking about the display of this device as if it was one of the greatest things since sliced bread, but it's pretty evident that you are playing with an LCD panel when you're on the Switch 2. Even with the HDR10 support and a more modernized display, it's just so evident. OLED reigns triumphant for me when you're playing Nintendo-specific titles. Because of the art style of these games, they just sing when you're using an OLED panel. Because I've recently been playing with an RG556 for all my retro experiences, playing things like Link to the Past, Mega Man X, Simpsons Hit and Run, and that has an AMO OLED display, and there's the stark difference between the two. It's a nice LCD display, and the screen size is going from a 6.2-inch on the original Switch, from a 7-inch on the OLED Switch, to a 7.9-inch 1080p display. So 720p to 1080p, plus we get an extra inch. Makes all the difference. When you're playing, you don't wish for more screen, which is the main thing. But I do wish they launched with an OLED version of this, because when I play, I see the haze of color. I don't see the true contrast that you get with OLED. And I'm playing Zelda and Mario, and I can just envision what it's going to look like with that OLED panel, and it's bothering me when I can get a sub 200 device with an OLED panel to play these games, and then I know what they're doing. They're trying to make money where they re-release in a couple of years' time an OLED version. But that's definitely something to consider if you've been playing on an OLED panel on the original Switch, that this upgrade is going to feel a little lacking. The display does suffer from fingerprints, so get yourself a nice cloth. You'll be wiping it very often, or just use the controllers instead of the touchscreen display. But what I love about the Switch 2 is that it solves one of the biggest issues I had with the Switch 1, and makes this worth the upgrade, at least for myself. Because I buy this kind of console for cooperative experiences, so I can play with my wife, my friends, my family. I can also take it on the go and play with someone when we're out and about in public. It's the perfect device for traveling when you talk about form factor and the fact you can share the remote control, so you have two-player anywhere you go. The original Switch, I used to have to sit so close to the display in order to see anything. This one, the largest screen, is a perfect size that you can actually sit back a little bit and relax when you're playing in a cafe. As well as the increased brightness of this display, it gets a lot brighter than the original one, so when you're sitting in cafes where they let a lot of light in, unless you're going somewhere quite hipster and it's dark, you can actually see the display and play games out and about still. But something's odd. You have to turn off auto brightness, otherwise it doesn't get as dark as you want if you're playing at night, or as bright as you want if you're playing during the day. Bit annoying, but tip. A small perk with this is the updated stand from the original Switch 1. They did update this in the OLED version, but for this version, they do have a stand that has a range of motion, so you can have multiple angles depending on how you want to play. And a pro tip, if you have the stand out a little bit, you can wrap your fingers around it, a bit like a pop socket, and give yourself some better ergonomics. We do need to talk about the controllers. These seem to be a fantastic improvement for Nintendolts, I think we call them. Adults who play Nintendo. There's much more surface area to grab onto and play with here. You also get much larger buttons at the top, so you don't need a needle to press them down. You can actually use your entire finger, which is very, very helpful when you're playing split-screen titles that require Joy-Cons. And something I found out is that you can actually connect your Switch 1 controllers to the Switch 2. So if you're upgrading the device, you actually have 4 controllers available then, out of the gate without having to buy extra Joy-Cons if you're playing with multiple people at home. Something I noticed though when using these is you do have to stretch a little more to reach the buttons or the sticks when you're using the Joy-Cons to play. Nearly half the controller is actually empty space. I'm not sure how child-friendly this remote is actually going to be. It can make for an uncomfortable play at times. I did need to turn on auto accelerate in Mario Kart. It feels like it's cramped down one end of the controller. Yeah, it could have been better. And one of the main reasons I pick up a Nintendo Switch is for the exclusive games, the first-party IPs from Nintendo. Otherwise, I would just play on my gaming PC, my console, or I'd get something like the Steam Deck, where I can get cheap games and a larger game library and AAA experiences on a handheld. So what was available to entice us to buy a new console? The console launched pretty much with Mario Kart and another racer, but the known franchises that we know and love Nintendo for, we had Mario Kart Worlds. That's about it. We do have Donkey Kong as well, but that's coming out next month, nearly 6 weeks after the release of the device. And Mario Kart's not going to last you 6 weeks, although there's a lot of content there, you know, it is just racing over and over again. But my gosh, what a fantastic game. It is good. It is good fun. And if you go for the bundle, you save yourself around £40 because it's expensive if you buy it as a standalone game. So if you have the opportunity to pick this device up, buy the bundle. It's an extra 30 quid and you get Mario Kart Worlds with it. And that's a title you're going to be playing throughout the life cycle of this device. But what Nintendo are doing that's interesting, that's good and bad, depending on what your perspective is on this new console, is they are offering Switch 2 upgrades to existing games. So I bought Tears of the Kingdom Zelda. I had not played this on my Switch 1. I'd only played Breath of the Wild. And you can spend about £7, $10 for the Switch 2 upgrade of this title. And before and after, it's just a completely different game. Running at 60 frames a second, any game at 30 FPS actually bothers me so much these days. It's like a slideshow. So you get 60 FPS and the textures are upgraded as well. The draw distance is improved. It feels like a complete remaster on the original. They must have been pushing the limits on the Switch 1 for this game because it now looks and plays like it should have from the beginning. I can't believe the Switch 1 Breath of the Wild was 8 years ago. And another reason why I wanted to get the Switch 2 initially was for retro emulation, because they were going to emulate GameCube experiences, so you could play GameCube on this handheld. And that got me excited. I'm a retro lover. I've got all of the retro consoles you can see behind me. But before I actually got this console, I bought an RG556, a retro handheld which has an OLED panel and can play up to Wii and PlayStation 2 titles. And the games there just sing. They are fantastic. The colors pop. The display is beautiful. And when I'm getting a device that's, I think I paid around £150 versus the cost of a Switch 2, which is a fraction of the cost, nearly a third of the cost actually. I can't really recommend this if your intention is for retro experiences. I would probably get the OLED Switch and also an RG556 to enjoy retro titles, because there's no games available for the Switch 2 yet. You'll be playing the back library of titles if you haven't got a Switch yet. Because with the 556, you get the OLED panel, it's lighter, you have better ergonomics, and the retro games look fantastic. Plus, it's way, way cheaper. And talking of weight, this Switch 2 weighs 534 grams. That is around 30, I think 27% to be specific, heavier than the original Switch. It is a dense device. When I hold this, it feels so premium and so dense, but it's heavy. And with the increased size of the controllers, I do wonder if the younger, the non-Nintendo adults are going to be able to handle this device for long periods of time. So if you're thinking about getting this for a minor, try and take them to a tech store and get them to play with it and feel what it's like in a handheld mode. Docking, I'm sure they'll be fine, but it is a lot bigger and a lot heavier. you feel it. When I see the Switch 1 next to the Switch 2, it's almost laughable. Even though the Switch 1 is old now, the step up and upgrade on the actual build quality is truly impressive. And after seeing before and after with Tears of the Kingdom, on day one of this console's launch, I am excited to see what they squeeze out of this in future, because this is going to leverage DLSS, because it's got a custom NVIDIA chip inside the Switch 2. I think the Switch 2 upgrade right now, for people who have the Switch 1, the original, definitely provides an upgraded experience for sure. If it's to play games that you've already played, it's probably not worth that price tag right now. I would wait for the OLED. In a couple of years' time, not only will you have an increased library, you'll have a much better display that I'm actually craving already. I want that OLED panel. For high-end gameplay, if you're into handhelds, the obvious is the OLED Steam Deck. It's the best bang for your buck, plus you'll have access to your Steam library, and there's constant sales on. That's probably the route I would go. If you're looking for retro experiences, I would look at the OLED RG556. Do not regret that purchase in any way, shape, or form. One of the best handhelds I think I've ever had for the price point. But the Switch 2 right now, it's for new people entering the space. It's for enthusiasts who want day one. And I don't think it's actually suited for young kids. The form factor just seems too large. So I expect a light version to come out in future as well, because I know that was quite popular for the younger lot. But the upgraded games on the Switch 2, there is a stark difference. It is night and day. But with all that being said, I do not have buyer's remorse. I absolutely love this device. I am loving the Switch 2. I've got Mario World. I've got Zelda with the Switch 2 upgrade. I'm going to be sorted for a while until Donkey Kong's out. And this new device, this iteration really, solves a lot of problems that I had with the Switch 1 around the use I really get out of it with it being a portable device. And the quality of the build is fantastic. I want to go play some more Mario Kart now. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. Happy gaming. Good day.